There's a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, reported from Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الإيمان لا يخلق في جوف أحدكم كما يخلق الثوب فاسألوا الله أن يجدد الإيمان في قلوبكم أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. And the meaning of this hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created Iman inside your hearts like the cloth. كَمَا يَخْلُقُ الثَّوْبَ, like how He has created the cloth. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us, فَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ أَن يُجَدِّدَ الْإِيمَانَ فِي قُلُوبِكُم. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He renews your faith. He renews your Iman. We understand from this hadith that Iman is something that needs renewing. We need our Iman to be renewed. This is one of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands every single Muslim from the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to come back every Friday to attend the Jumah Salah, to listen to the Khutbah, so that you can refresh your week, you can refresh your Iman, you can refresh your deeds. All your deeds of that week will be forgiven. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us time and time again in different areas in our life, in different places, to continuously fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear brothers and sisters, among all of the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us in this life, there's no blessing, no gift that is greater, no gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has given to us that is more precious, that is more valuable to us. It is not our family, not our wealth, not our health, not our safety. None of these are as valuable as the gift of Iman. There's no wealth, no asset greater than Iman. To put this into perspective, Sa'adatul Darain, which we call true success, happiness in both worlds, success in this dunya and in the hereafter, to be worthy of Jannah, to gain closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. None of these depend on anything except besides the state of a person's Iman. To Allah, it does not matter whether we are wealthy or not. It does not matter to Allah how respected we are. Meaning, if these things were the criteria to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if these things did mean whether we are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not, then do you know who the first people that would be standing in front of Jannah, who it would be? It would be Fir'aun. If the criteria of being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your wealth, then the person that would be standing in front of Jannah would be Haman. It would be Qarun. If gaining closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala depended on how respected a person was, the first person to be standing in front of Jannah, it would be Bukht Nasr, it would be Shaddad, it would be Namrud. All of these Jabbareen, these tyrants. But despite everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given them, Allah did not give them the most greatest gift, and that is the gift of Iman, of faith. Being worthy of Jannah in the eyes of Allah depends solely on a state of a person's Iman. There's a beautiful hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, Inna min ummati man law jaa ahadukum yas'aluhu dinara lam yu'ti, walau sa'alahu dirhaman lam yu'ti, walau sa'alahu falsan lam yu'ti, walau sa'ala Allahu al-jannah a'tahu iyyahu. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, there are people from amongst my ummah. There are people from my ummah. They are poor. They are not respected in people's eyes. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went on to explain that if they were to ask a person for one gold coin, they would never be given it. If they were to ask for even a silver coin, they would not be given it. If they were to ask for some sadaqah, for some charity, for some money, they would not be given it. But if they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Jannah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give them Jannah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He would not reject that. So it depends solely on a person's state of Iman, not on how wealthy or respected or so on and so forth a person is. So the greatest gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given each and every single one of us here is the gift of Iman. Now, just like anything in this world, anything that is of value, anything that is of worth, we try our utmost to protect that thing, isn't it? If it's a person's family, he will make sure that he protects his family because, of course, they are valuable to him. If a person has wealth, that person, he will put their wealth in their pocket. He will keep it in their wallet. He will keep the wealth in their bank account, in a safe. You will not see a person have their money outside in front of their front lawn for anyone to take. Why is that? Because we know money is something of value. A person similarly, he takes care of their health. He takes care of his own health. Why? Because they value their wealth. Anything you value, you will try to maintain it. You will try to safeguard it. You will protect it. You will do your best to try to keep this thing with you as long as you can. That is a sign that you hold value of that certain thing. So what are we doing to protect our iman? Now that we know that iman is the most valuable thing that has been given to you and I, each of us know to what extent people go to protect their wealth. Each of us know to what extent people go to protect their health. What extent have we gone to protect our iman? And why is this important? This is important because Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that a time will come that will be close to Qiyamah, which is the time we are living in now. Our Prophet said there are such days ahead of you in which people's iman will become so vulnerable to being snatched away. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says that a believer, a man, a person, he will be yusbihu rajulu mu'mina wa yumsi kafira. That a person in the morning, he will wake up as a believer. He will wake up with the person who has this most valuable thing, this iman. Wa yumsi kafira. And by the evening, this person, his state of iman will be snatched away from him, and he will have already become a kafir. And these are the days we are living in now, in which we are surrounded by fitan and fasad. Like the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that a time will arise, a time will come, al-fitan tamuju, that the fitan, the trials, the tests, they will be like waves, tamuju. And what do we understand from waves? That when one wave finishes, another wave is on its way. So this is how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is describing a time close to Qiyamah, that the fitan will be so much that one will not finish until another one has started. And these are the days we are living in. So the question is, what are we doing to protect our and our families' iman in these times? Because wallahi, my dear brothers and sisters, if we lose everything in this dunya, we lose all our wealth, we lose our family members, na'udhu billah, we lose our health, we lose the things that are very valuable to us. But a person, he was able to keep his iman intact until his dying breath, that person was successful. And if a person, he earned everything on earth, but a person wasn't able to keep their or their family's iman intact until this person died, then this person has failed and he has lost. So how do we keep our iman intact during these times? The first thing, the ulama, the scholars of Islam, of our faith, they have explained is that, look, if you open up the Quran, you will find that in the Quran, everywhere you read amanu, iman, everywhere you read the word iman, the word faith, you will find that next to it, or right after it, another word always comes, and that is a'mal, actions. You will always find these two things hand in hand, isn't it? الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ كَانَتْ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتُ الْفِرْدَوْسِ نُزُلًا إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَى وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ. These things, iman and a'mal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings over and over again, hand in hand. Iman and a'mal. Iman and a'mal. So the ulama, they explain here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is explaining a very fine point. One of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is explaining here is if a person, he wants to keep their iman intact, they must follow it up with performing their nawafil, with performing their voluntary acts, their voluntary good deeds. How so? Look, Just like in the human body, just like in a body part, if we use that part less, that part ends up being weaker. If a person's arm is in a cast for a couple of months and he takes it off, will that arm in the cast be stronger than the other arm? No, of course not, because he used that arm less. So just like in your body, the part that you use less becomes weaker, similar is the state of our iman. The less you use your iman, in other words, the less you perform your a'mal, the less you follow it up with action, the weaker it will get. This is why the month of Ramadan, although it's only 30 days, it's really not that long of a time. But in just 30 days, you see your iman soar so high. And likewise afterwards, when Ramadan is over, you feel that your iman is going lower. It's because thereof of our performance, of our lack of a'mal, with regards to how much a'mal we are doing outside throughout the rest of the year. So it is our voluntary deeds that keep up our iman. Each of us must ask ourselves, I must ask myself, why is it that I'm okay with doing just the bare minimum? In other words, as long as I pray 5 times a day, and I give zakat once a year, and I do hajj, that should be enough to protect my iman. But again, we know to what extent we go to protect our wealth and to protect those things that we value. So why is this the bare minimum? Why do we, in other words, expect just that much to protect the most valuable thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us? How can that be? Something that is worth nothing, maybe 50 cents or $1, it's in the supermarket. You will see that thing lying around anywhere for anyone to even grab, maybe even steal. But that big diamond that's in the store, it is protected by a glass and no one can just snatch it. Because we know that this thing is of value. The more valuable a certain thing is, the more protected it is. So what are we doing to protect our iman? Why are we, in other words, not punctual upon our nawafil and our prayers? Why are we not reading as much as Quran as we should every day? Each of us must ask these questions to ourselves. Why? Why am I not doing as much as God, as much as remembrance of Allah as I should every day? Like the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "La yazalu lisanuka ratba," that your tongue should not stay dry, that your tongue should stay moist with the remembrance of Allah. My tongue isn't always moist with the remembrance of Allah. I do it and then I stop and then I do it. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said it should always be. In other words, why is it that we are so behind, so reluctant in performing nawafil when these are the things that actually protect our iman? Understand? This is the question. Now the ulama explained here that there are 2 main reasons, 2 possibilities why a person is not punctual upon their nawafil, upon doing a'mal, upon doing voluntary deeds. Look, you know the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created insan is that we don't do anything until we see that there is some fayda, there is some benefit for us. It's just the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has made us. We always look for our own benefit first. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is our Khaliq, our creator. So of course, He knows us, He understands that. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commanded us to pray salah. Will the salah benefit Allah or will it benefit us? Of course it will benefit us. When we recite Quran, it does not benefit Allah. When we give zakat, it does not benefit Allah. When we perform hajj, it does not benefit Allah. Rather in Hadith Qudsi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O son of Adam, if all of humanity was to become disobedient to me, it would not decrease any bit of my kingdom from me." So we only hurt ourselves when we become disobedient to Allah. And we only benefit ourselves when we become obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that we don't do anything unless we see our own benefit in it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, He said to pray salah. In salah, we know how much reward and what is the virtue behind salah. And it is in our benefit. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said that, okay, if you pray salah, I will show you what your virtue is, what your benefits are. The person, what is the reward for a person who comes to the masjid, who prays his salah. And there's so many types of rewards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets forth for just one good deed. Why is that? Do we ever wonder why We hear in the hadith and in the Quran how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes on to explain in detail the rewards of a believer, the rewards of a fasting person, the rewards of a person who gives sadaqah. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explain those things? You know, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted, He could have just told us, if you are good to me, if you obey me, I will give you Jannah. And Jannah is a very beautiful, great place. It's heaven. That's it. But Allah ta'ala knew that wouldn't be enough. Because the way we are, we like to know each and every detail. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He literally went on to explain it in so much detail so that we understand what are we getting from what we are doing. It is upon each and every single one of us to open up and read the fada'il, read the virtues that Allah has set behind doing these good deeds. For example, what is the virtue of me behind of doing wudu? Something we do every day. What is the virtue of coming to the masjid? What is the virtue of sitting silently in the masjid? What is the virtue of saying salam when you enter your home? So many of these a'mal, they are such fada'il, such great virtues that are set behind it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person does not know the virtue, he will do it one day and then he will stop. Because he doesn't know what he is gaining from doing this action. You understand? So the more a person, he knows the virtues behind these deeds, it is the more likely that he will not set back in these. So this is the first reason why we may be reluctant in performing our a'mal. That we have forgotten or we do not know the virtues behind these a'mal. So learn, read, ask, what is the virtue behind doing this? What is the virtue behind doing that? And the more you learn, the more likely it is that you will be steadfast, inshallah. The second reason why we are so reluctant, why we are lazy in performing our nawafil, it's maybe that we do know the virtues behind these actions, but we simply don't have enough promise in the virtues of Allah Ta'ala that He has set for us. And look, unfortunately, that has become the case for many of us. For example, just an example I'm going to give here. When we read on a paper or an article, and the first thing of the article says, recent science studies show, or a recent polling by Harvard graduates, or anything like that. Whatever comes after that, we read it like it's wahi. We read it like it's from the Quran, because we know that this is some recent studies that scientists have shown. So just that much is enough for us to look into that study or look into that article to make us feel like this is 100% a guaranteed fact. So when we read something that's from Allah, when we read the hadith or a lesson from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, whoever recites this dua, Allahumma inni abduk wa ibnu abdik wa ibnu amatik nasiyati biyadik, this whole dua, whoever recites this whole dua, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, if anyone is depressed, if anyone is overcome with sadness, and they read this dua, Allah will remove their sadness. And not just remove it, but will replace it with something far greater. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or he said that whoever reads this dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-huzn wa a'udhu bika min al-'ajzi wal-kasal. This entire dua, if you are even drowning in debt, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if someone recites this dua and they are drowning in debt, even if it is the amount of the entire Mount Uhud, that debt is upon their head. Just by reading this dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put it upon him to repay that loan on his behalf. Just by reading this dua. Now when we read such things, what happens is, we think, how is this possible? That just by this one dua, Allah is going to take something so great upon me away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take everything away. How is that possible? Like, in other words, what I'm saying is, we think like it is too good to be true. It's too good to be true that Allah is going to take everything away. And example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, another example, that whoever enters his home and says assalamu alaikum, just that, it takes 2 seconds to do that. Every single one of us can do that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that whoever does this just by saying salam on entering their home, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in return guarantees this person that as long as they live, He will suffice for them and all their needs. So when you read things like this, you think that it's too good to be true. How is it possible that just a small deed will guarantee me such a reward? And this is one of the reasons why we are not punctual on these things. And that's because we don't have enough yaqeen, enough faith in them. So how do we increase in our yaqeen on these promises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So one thing we must learn to do is that we must ponder over the qudrat of Allah, the capability of Allah. We must learn to ponder upon the creation of Allah. Like the poet said, الكون مشحون بأسراره إذا حاولت تفسيرا لها أعياك. الكون مشحون, that the world is full of signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إذا حاولت تفسيرا لها أعياك. And when you dwell deep into it, when you look into the signs of Allah, the more amazed it will leave you. وإذا تركت أعبانا ينفوت سمه فاسأله من ذا بالسموم حشاك. That he says, when you see a snake spit its venom, ask at that point, who is it the one who filled inside you such a venom? And the snake's venom, we know, is so poisonous at times that even one little drop of it can kill a human in an instant. So the poet says that when you realize this, ask again, كيف تعيش يا ثعبان وهذا السم يملأ فاك. That how is it that one drop of poison can kill a person and all that venom is sitting within the snake inside its mouth and the snake is yet still alive? How is that possible? وإذا رأيت الليل يغشي راجيا فاسأله من يا ليلها وجاك. That when you see the sky, when you see the nighttime, and you see how calm and peaceful it is at night, so ask, who is it that made you so calm and peaceful? وإذا رأيت النبت في الصحراء يربى وحده. And when you go into the desert and you are driving in the desert and you come across one plant that is out of the ground, فاسأله من أرباك. Ask, who is it that sprouted you? من الذي تعصى ويغفر دائما. Who is the one you continuously disobey, and He is the one who continuously forgives. So the more we ponder upon the qudrat, upon the capability of Allah, upon the power of Allah, it will become more clear to us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He can fulfill our promises. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He can create such great creations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَخَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ أَكْبَرُ مِنْ خَلْقِ النَّاسِ. That the creation of the seven skies and the seven earths, it is greater than the creation of insan, of humans itself. What can we understand from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us? That if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can create such gigantic creations of the ocean and the skies and the earth, how is it not possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make your worries go away? How is it not possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can accept your one dua, to have peace in your home, to have peace in your workplace? So the more we ponder upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can definitely give us these great virtues. This realization will only come to you the more you ponder upon the qudrat of Allah. So this is the first way we keep our iman. We increase our iman by pondering upon the power of Allah. And inshallah we'll end off with this. The second way that we can increase our iman, and that is to read the stories of the Anbiya, to read the stories of the messengers of Allah, the stories of the prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran. How does this increase our iman? Look, the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were the people we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has tested the most difficult of tests. When we are going through a difficult time, remember that none of us have ever or will ever face anything of a task more difficult than what the prophets of Allah Azza wa Jal faced. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, أَشَدُّ النَّاسِ بَلَاءً الْأَنْبِيَاء. That the most severe tested amongst the people, amongst humankind, are the messengers of Allah. So when we read and we go through the stories of the prophets, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He promised them help, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised them victory, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised them the light to the end of the tunnel, and so on and so forth. And no matter how far-fetched it seemed, Allah ta'ala made sure that He fulfilled His promise. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, فَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ أَن يُجَدِّدَ الْإِيمَانَ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. To ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to renew your iman. So this iman, my dear brothers and sisters, is one thing that we have to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us firm in our iman. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us this iman until our dying breath. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-azim. ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم. أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد بعدد من صلى وصام. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد بعدد من قعد وقام. وصل على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى كل ملائكة المقربين وعلى عباد الله الصالحين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين والكفر والكافرين ودمر أعداء الدين. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. ولذكر الله تعالى أعلى وأولى وأعز وأجل وأتم وأهم وأكبر. والله يعلم ما تصنعون. أقم الصلاة.